into IT industry. First of all, I started my journey with Java developer, moved to the RPA. Currently, I'm working as a technology lead in Broadridge Financial Solutions, and also received the Uipath MVP award for the year 2022, and also received community awards from Uipath as an active member towards contribution to the Uipath. Today's agenda is about Uipath ReFramework and what is the uses of ReFramework architecture and live demo. Before getting into the ReFramework, first of all, I will explain you about the business process. Any business process can be divided into the three categories. One is a linear, iterative, and transactional. In the linear process, it will be like, first of all, initialization will be there, and then get data, process data, and end. It will be run only once for a single iteration. Whereas in the iterative process, first it will initialization will be runs only once, and then get data, and then iterative process data. It will take one by one item from the get data, and it will process everything. And then once all iterations are completed, then it will go to the end process. It will be like a kind of while loop, do while loop, and the for each loop kind of thing. It will be iterative. Main drawback of the iterative process is if any one of the transaction got failed, means the entire process will be stopped. To overcome this challenge, we have the transactional process. In the transactional process, first of all, it will start with the initialization, and then get data and process data. It will take one by one item. All the transaction items will be the independent. It will take first item, it will process, and then once it is completed, it will go to the second item. Like that. Once all items are completed, then it will go to the end process, end state. Yeah, first of all, what is our ReFramework? ReFramework is a template provided by the Uipath. ReFramework stands for Robotic Enterprise Framework. By using ReFramework, we can handle any type of business process, especially for transactional process. It will be, I will show you the architecture diagram in the later slide. And this template is implemented using state machine diagram. It will contain set of states like init state, end state, and like that. Set of states will be there. And why we want to use the ReFramework? We have many advantages by using ReFramework. One is the reusability. Here everything will be split in the modular wise. We can reuse whenever we want in those things, those components. And scalability, we can easily scale up as per our volume. We can create with the dispatcher and performer kind of things, and also we can segregate the load, can be giving it to the multiple processor and all. We can easily scale up as per the volume. And effective logging. Effective logging is nothing but it will provide proper logging mechanism. By seeing the logs, we can get to know easily where the bot is getting stopped and all. And error screenshot, whenever any exception occurred, it will take the screenshot, it will save into the particular location, so that we can easily navigate, and we can by seeing the screenshot, we can easily identify why bot got failed and all. And exception handling, if we are not using any ReFramework, sometimes it may fail, like we don't know, we may miss to handle some of the exceptions. By using ReFramework, we can handle each and every exception. It will provide proper for each and every step. It has try catch blocks, and those things will be there. We can easily handle any exceptions. Coming to the ReFramework architecture, it has set of 4 stages will be there: init state, get transaction, process state, and end process. I will explain you one by one in the Uipath Studio. Just I'm showing the high level diagram. This will be like state machine diagram here. It will contain 4 states, ReFramework. Let me go into the Uipath Studio, and I will show you how to create the. Here you need to click on the start button. There you will find the different templates will be there. Robotic Enterprise Framework, background, mobile testing, and all. Here we need to select the Robotic Enterprise Framework. Here I am giving some random name. Once we click the create button, it will create all the basic structure and everything. It will be created. Now it's installing the dependencies and all. See here, everything entire structure got created. Just it will be the template. It is providing by the Uipath. It contains 4 states: initialization state, get transaction, and process transaction, and end process state we have. In the initialization state, we'll read all the configuration related links, like application URLs and what are the configuration, everything required for the process, everything will read under initialization state. And also we'll open all the applications, what are the applications we are going to use in our process. And in the main interviews also, some people will ask what are the available states in the RE framework and how many number of transitions are there. I will come one by one. First one will be the initialization. Outcome will be, and after initialization is completed, we have 2 possible outcomes will be there, either system exception or successful. If everything is successfully completed, then it will go to the get transactions data. If anything got failed, any application is not properly launched, and any Excel issue are there, then it will go to the end process and process will be stopped. In the get process transaction data, here we'll read one by one item. Let's say we have 10 items to process in one of the particular process. Here it will take one by one item and it will send it to the process state. In process state, it will process one by one item, and again once the item is completed, it will go back to the get transaction data. Here you can see new transition. This is the transaction. If any item is found, it will go to the process state. If we don't have any items left in the queue, means it will go to the end process and the process will be stopped. In the process state, we have 3 possible outcomes is there. One is success, one is business exception, and other one is system exception. If the item is successfully completed or business exception occurred, then it will go to the get transaction data. If any exception is occurred, then it will go to the init state and again it will go reprocess the item. Business exception is nothing but whatever the business, in some of the process we have some business users defines some rules. If any of the particular field is not missing or any some conditions, they will define. Those parts come under the business exception. Let me go into the one by one state. Here you can see, now I opened the initialization state. Here you can see entry state. For each and every state, they have set of states will be there, entry and exit, and transitions will be there. First of all, it will start with the initialization state entry. Here you can see try catch block is there. For each and every state, we have proper exception handling will be there, try catch blocks, so that it will handle any kind of exceptions and it will log those messages, so that we can easily identify where the bot is got failed and all. In RE framework, we have certain number of arguments, variables and arguments will be there. We need to mainly focus on these things. Transaction item. This is, if you are using orchestrator queues, means item variable type will be the queue item. If you are not using transaction item, then based on the transaction data, we need to change that. I will come into what transaction data and transaction item later. And system exception. These are the variables. In each and every state, we will call this. These are all are the global variables. In system exception, this is of type exception here. And same way business exception, transaction number. Here transaction number will be default initialized with 1. And config. It will, here config is the main one. It will be the dictionary kind of thing. It will read the everything from the Excel file and it will convert it to the dictionary. And retry number, if any of the transaction got failed, means how many number of times you want to retry, those things will define here. And this is the main important one, transaction data. Based on this only, the RE framework will be dependent based on transaction data and transaction item. So before taking any of the process, we need to make sure what is our transaction data and transaction item. Once we created any process, by default, it will create all these folders in RE framework. Entities, local, project, and dot screenshot, settings, and all these things are will default will come. I will mainly focus on what are the things are required for our process. I will concentrate. Here you can see data. Under this data, input, output, and temp. This is the configuration file. Here we'll define all the credentials, names, and if you are using any orchestrator queues, any URLs, everything will define under this sheet. Here mainly it contains of 3 sheets: settings, constants, and assets. Here you can see already all the details are, everything is configured. Just by using this name, we will get all the values here in our process. I will explain you one by one sheet. Under assets, so if we are using any orchestrator assets, those things will define here, like any application URLs, any configuration details, those things will create into the orchestrator asset, and by using this name we'll call these things. This is orchestrator queue folder name, and everything will be defined here. Let me create one queue for our process. First of all, I will explain you about what are the use case we are going to do now. Let me show you that. In today's demo, I am going to show you this. These are the available I mentioned the states. I will find out the capital city for each and every state. I will write it here. If successfully bot is able to find the capital city of the state, we'll mark it the status as success. Else we'll mark it as failed here. Let's see how we are going to implement using ReFramework this. Now I am coming with, first I opened the initialization state. Let me go back and again reopen. Here you can see button is there. You can click on this red circle icon. You can open the init state. Initially there is system exception is nothing. Here we are defining initially we don't have any exception. So we are assigning the value as nothing. And in the same way, config is nothing. Here you can see variable config doesn't hold any value here. We didn't initialize any value here. So then in the first run, you can see here first run. Only in one run only it will run. If any system exception occurred in the process state, it will come to the initialization state. That time again we don't read this all the configuration details and all. We not required. Only one time only will read in the entire process. Here you can see init all settings. You may wonder where this workflow and all everything came here. Let me show you where this, once you created the RE framework, all some default workflows will come here. You will find everything under framework. See here, close all application, get transaction, init all application. I will come one by one workflow later. I will explain you one by one workflow. What is the use of the workflows? Here you can see init all settings. Here first we are initializing the thing. Here we are initializing the dictionary variable config. New dictionary string comma object. Here we have two sheets are there, settings and constants. In our configuration file, we have three sheets are there, settings and constant. These two things will be, first we are reading first two sheets, settings and constant. Later we'll read the asset sheet. So here we are using the for each loop and we are reading the one by one sheet. First it will come the settings sheet. Then we are by using, hope you know Excel, how to read the Excel files and all. Here by using read range activity, we are reading the Excel file and it will give you the output as data table. Then we are using for each row item, for each row data table activity. If we have the input as data table, we'll use for each row activity. If you have any other thing like collection of activities, list variable, then we'll use for each loop activity. So here above data read range activity output is data table. So we are using for each row data table activity. Here we are passing the data table name. Here you can see, here we have saved the output under dt underscore settings and constants. So we are checking one by not string is null or empty or not. We are checking one by one row here. If the name is not null, then we are assigning this value to this name. So based on this orchestrator queue name, we'll take this value here. This value will read it in our process. In the third row, again, orchestrator queue folder is there. We'll give some statement here. I will tell you where this folder name we find it here. Under Uipath, you can find here. See, you can see this is the folder name in our my orchestrator. And for process, I am creating one queue like state capital Q. So bot will read one by one row. If it is not null, we are checking whether this value is null or not. If it is not null, we are assigning this value to this one. If it is empty, then we are skipping that row here. See here, you can see here, row of name is not null or not, we are checking. If row of name is not null, then we are assigning this value to row of name. We are assigning that row of value. This is the value here. You can see in the Excel file we defined here. You can see value is there. So it will iterate one by one row. If it is not null, it will assign it to this value. If it is empty, means here in the else part we didn't define anything. We are keeping as blank. So it won't assign any value to that one. Once the first sheet is completed settings, then it will go back to the second sheet. You can see two iterations are there here. In the configuration sheets, we have two values are there. One is settings and other one is constants. So first it will read all the settings sheet. It will assign it to the dictionary. Once everything is completed, it will take the second sheet and it will read and it will assign the values. Now coming back to the asset sheet, you can see here total we have three sheets, right? We read only settings and constant. Now we are going to read the asset sheet here. Again, the same way, we are using read range activity and this sheet name is assets. And output is the data table. So again, we are using for each row activity. Here you can see get asset activity. If you want to read any value from the assets, we need to use the get asset activity. Orchestrator assets hold four kind of values. One is string value, boolean, integer, and credentials. If we are using string, boolean, integer, we need to use get asset activity. If it is credentials, we need to use the get credential activity. So here we are not defining any credentials. So just we are using string. So we are using get asset and row of asset. In the same way, we are reading one by one, reading the value and assigning to the name here. Most of the things already by default only ReFramework will generate. Just whatever we require, we need to change as per our process. We need to define. That is the main advantage of using ReFramework. Most of the things already by default it will come here. If any exception occurred, it will throw the exception there. Hope you covered the exception handling and all. Here we have three sets of things will be there: try, catch block, and finally block. First, it will go to the try block. If any exception is occurred, it will go to the catch block. If we don't have any exception, didn't occur in any exception in the try block, it will skip this catch block. Irrespective of whether any exception occurred or not, you want to execute few things, means we'll go to the finally block. Here we'll implement those things if you want to execute anything. If you don't want anything, then you can skip this part. Just keep it as blank. Once everything is completed, then we'll assign the out underscore config. Here you can see the directions. We are passing this configuration to outside so that we can use in the entire our ReFramework. Let me go click on this import workflow. Here you can see config file means the Excel file path we are providing here. Data. Here you can see Excel is under data underscore. We are just giving the relative path here, data underscore ReFramework. Data underscore fault. Here you can see data, and then we are giving the config file path. We are not giving the full path here because it's already inside the project folder. So you no need to define the entire folder path. If we are keeping the configuration file any other place, then you need to give the entire path, entire Excel file path you should define there. And configuration settings, and once everything is, we are assigning the value inside the workflow to config dictionary variable, then we are passing it outside. You can see direction is out here. Now all the configuration data is everything kept under config. Here I'm creating the two names. One is to save the Excel file path and one is the application URL I'm saving. Just I'm giving the Google page URL I'm giving, so that I can search one by one capital city name and state name I can search, and I will find the capital city. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, sorry, in between system got stuck. Here I'm defining the application URL here, and also I'm giving the Excel file path. Here is the Excel file path, so I'm giving the Excel file path here. See, by using this name, we'll fetch this value. In future, if you want to change any value, means you no need to change anything in our code. Just you need to come to this Excel file, and you can change the value as per. Let's say today google.com is some other URL got changed. You can come here, you can change the path. No need to change anything in our process. Everything will be done in the configuration file only, this config file. Now we need to create this queue name also in the orchestrator. I will show you how to create this orchestrator queue. Here I'm going to the queue page. Here I'm clicking on the add queue. Here I'm creating the new queue. It should match with the exact the Excel file name. Whatever we created, defined in the Excel file, that name should match there. Here I created with state capital Q, so I'm defining there. And if you want any of the transaction got failed, means if you want to retry, we can define how many number of times we want to retry. If you don't want to retry, then you can uncheck here. You can see here auto retry. How many number of times you want to retry, you can define that many number of times here. If you don't want any auto retry, you can make it as unchecked, so that will be disappeared here. Now I'm not keeping any auto retry mechanism for this queue, so I'm uncheck that box. Only that's it. You need to put the state capital new, and description will be optional. You can keep it anything if required, but this field is optional. You can see if any required field is there, it will be asterisk will be the required field. Now clicking on the add button, you can see now queue is created. Initially we doesn't have any values inside this queue item. I'm clicking on the view transaction. So as of now, we don't have any values here. It is empty queue. Just here we are checking orchestrator queue name is defined or not. Here you can see two arguments are there. One is orchestrator queue name and folder name. If you're keeping as anything blank, means we need to define those values inside the Excel file, this configuration file here. Here already we shared. If you're not adding any values, then you can keep it here. You can under default value, you can mention those values, queue name and what is the queue folder name and so here we are checking the orchestrator queue name, and next if condition is we are checking for orchestrator queue folder. We are checking if these values are not null, then we are reading the values from those things. Next you can see kill all process. Here whatever currently in our process we are going to use, first of all we need to kill those process. So in our current process, we are using Google Chrome and Excel file. So first of all, I will kill those process names. I will create one argument with array of string I will create. in underscore process list, and direction will be in, and argument type I am defining as array of string I am giving here. I'm using for each loop to iterate one by one process name. Here we need to give it the whatever the argument we created just now in underscore process list array of string, that name we need to define here. And we need to change, see type argument is string only. If any other type of is there, we need to change accordingly. You can change the values from here drop down. If you are defining as array of integer, you will select the type argument as array of integer here. If it is string means you can define it string there. In our current process it will be string, so I'm defining a string there. If you want to kill any of the process, we have one activity called kill process activity. You can check the continuous error true and applies to. Here you can have, see these are the available options are there. Only you want to kill to the current user, current session, or current desktop. Current desktop may contain multiple users will be logged in different sessions. You want to close all the things based on the options we can. Only I want to kill for current user, so I'm selecting only current user from the drop down. And process name, here you can see item is there. If you want, we can rename it as. So I renamed the item to process. Now I'm passing the name to process name as process here. Here you can see now we created one argument. We need to click on import. It will show in the orange color, means some updates are there under invoke argument. So we need to click on import argument. See here it is whatever argument we created, it is asking. We need to pass the values. In our current process, we are using two applications. One is Excel and other one is Chrome. So I'm giving the both process names here. So I define both the process name Excel and Chrome so that it will iterate one by one process and it will kill it. We pass two arguments to this process. First, it will come in the first iteration, it will kill the Excel process. In the second iteration, it will close the Chrome process. And here we need to read this Excel file. We need to read this thing and we'll keep into one memory with this way. Now I'm reading the Excel file here. To read the Excel files, we need to use, we can use workbook activities or Excel read range activities. Here I'm using workbook read range activity. See here we have two read range activities. Is there one is commander Excel file, one Excel, and other one is workbook. When hope you all know when we will use the read range activity Excel and workbook and all. If we don't have Excel application is installed in our machine, then we can use the workbook activity. If Excel application is installed, you can good to use any one, whether Excel one or workbook activity. Here I'm using workbook activity. Here we need to give the Excel file path where this Excel file is there. Already this Excel file we defined in the configuration sheet. You can see here. By using this name, we'll get this entire path. I'm copying that name. And here entire thing, everything will be, all the configuration details, everything will be under it on the dictionary config. So config of, and that name I'm giving here, .toString .trim. It will read the whatever configuration path we defined in the Excel file, it will give that one Excel file path here. And sheet name we need to give here. Here you can see sheet name is sheet 1. So I'm just giving the sheet 1 here in the double quotes. Then I am saving this data enter into, we have some global variables I told, right? We are assigning into DT underscore transaction data. And range, you can keep it as blank. If you are keeping as blank means it will read the entire sheet from the where the data is started. Uipath can automatically detect where the exact data is started. If you're starting from any other particular place, then you need to give the starting range. If it is starting from E2 cell means just you need to give it as E2. So first row, it will be considered as first data is starting from E2. If you're not defining anything, it will treat it as first row as A1 as the starting row item. Starting cell, it will be considered. If you have any password protected files are there, you can define the password here. Now I am using so here output is a data table, right? So I'm using for each row activity here to iterate one by one row item. Here you can see for each row in data table. I'm passing the DT underscore transaction data. Now I'm adding the items to the queue now. I'm using activity called add queue item activity. It will add one by one, it will read one by one row from the Excel file and it will add to the queue. Here we need to give the queue name here. Queue name we again will read it from the config file. See, this is the queue name. We will define this orchestrator queue name in our process. By using this name, we'll fetch the value. Why I'm giving trim means if any extra spaces are there before or after, to delete those things, I'm giving the trim here to delete that extra spaces and all. Here queue name we defined, and now I'm giving the folder path also. Folder path is the shared one, so I created under the name is orchestrator queue folder. By using the name, we'll fetch the value from the config file. Now we want to add those items to the queue, right? Here I'm clicking on the item information collection. Here we need to define. Here we are going to add all the state names. You can from the Excel file header is state. So I'm creating the defining that state there. Here just I'm adding one by one. Here it will read the entire Excel file. We are saving into the one data table. Then we're iterating one by one row. It will add all the state names to the orchestrator queue. Total we have 10 states are there here. All the names. It will iterate one by one and it will add to the orchestrator queue. I'm just keeping one message box. So once items got added, I will show you how the items got added. Now all items got added. This is here you can see one more workflow is there. Here we'll define init all applications. Here what are the required applications we are opening in our process. We'll define we'll launch all the applications here. Let me open this workflow. Here see, just we will invoke all here. We want to launch the Google Chrome browser. So I'm using open browser activity. Here we need to pass the application URL. Application URL holds, this is the one, http google.com. Here you can see already in underscore config is there. We are passing the config dictionary variable to this one. Here just I will use the in underscore config and that application URL dot toString. So that whatever the URL we defined in the configuration file, it will come here. Here we need to define which browser you want to use. Here you can see all the list of available browsers with UiPath supports. Here I am using Chrome browser, so I give the Chrome browser here. That's it. Init all application. Just we are here only one application only we are launching. So I gave the application URL and defined the which browser I want to use. That's it here. Init all application. And then the kill all process. Just we are using kill process activity before starting the actual process. What are the applications we are using in our process? We are killing everything here. Whereas in the init all settings, we are reading all the configuration details from the config file. Only in the main initialization state, we will mainly focus on these three workflows only here. If any exception is occurred, then it will go to the system exception, then it will go to the end process. So if any system exception occurred, it will go to the end process. If we don't have any exception occurred, then directly it will go to the get transaction data state if it is successful. Now let me go to the get transaction data state. Here you don't get panic, and after seeing all those things, you need to ignore all those things. Just focus on get transaction data state itself. Here you can see all the configuration details, everything we are passing here, everything. Just we need to open the workflow. And here we are using the get transaction item. By using this item, we'll get one by one item from the queue and we'll read it. Here see already the queue name came. Everything is already by default, it will come here. If you want to change any names, you can change it here. If everything is fine, you can keep it as same values only. Once the item is reading from the queue, we are assigning to the out underscore transaction item. We are passing the item to the outside. Here you can see out underscore transaction item. It is argument type is queue item. That's it. Here I did nothing here. Just I am checking everything is proper or not. Get transaction and process transaction is nothing but one kind of while loop, for loop, and all those things. It will read one by one item. It will send it to the process state. Here will process the main process will come here. It will read the item and it will process. Once item is completed, it will update the status, and then again it will go back to the end process get transaction data, and it will check any items are there or not. If any item found, it will again send it back to the process state. If we don't have any items, then it will go back to the no data state. Now let me go back to the process transaction state. Here see here initially we kept business exception as nothing, and here process data. Here main process will come here. We launched the Google Chrome browser. Now I want to so first I am using the attached browser activity to indicate that browser. I'm indicating the browser. Here only here we are entering one by one state name, and then we are fetching the capital city. Here just I'm adding the wildcard entry so that if anything is coming under also it will be taken. Just I added the star so that it will be 0 or more characters, it will be identified if anything is added before those. Now we need to enter the state name, right? So I'm giving this one. Here already in underscore transaction is came. I am giving one, I'm passing one more name called transaction number. In ReFramework, transaction number, everything will defaultly it will be initialized with 1. If you want to change anything, you can change it. Now here I am fetching the queue name. Whatever we items of state names we added to the orchestrator queue, that transaction item hold that value. From there I am fetching that value in underscore transaction item dot specific content. Here we need to give the what the name we defined in the initialization state. These are the not required here. Just state name. Here you can, where we define the state name, you can find it here. In it, the main.yaml file will define the state name here while adding the item to the queue. Let me show you that. See here we have add queue item activities there. Here we defined the name under item collection. Whatever name here provided, it's the same name you should use in the process state to fetch the value. So here I mentioned the state name. So same name only I'm using here also in process. So I'm assigning this value to one. These are the state names, right? So I'm creating one variable called state name. This hold the state name. Okay, it is. If he's finding any exclamatory mark or anything, if it's just H over, you'll find, you will get to know what is that exception refers. So now we got the state name from the queue that we need to enter into the browser. So I'm clicking on indicate element in the inside the browser. Here we need to enter the state name, right? So I'm indicating this field here. So this is the tag is input field. Here no need to change any selector and all. Just here state name. Capital, and then we need to enter. Hit the enter button, right? So from the drop down, you can find here enter button. And here we need to check few properties. Click before typing. Before entering the data, we need to click the before. And if any value is there, we will check the empty field, means it will blank that one. Then it will re-enter the new value. Only these properties I checked here. Let's say I want the Maharashtra capital. I want. So here we'll entering the Maharashtra capital. Then we are hitting the enter button. Then we'll fetch this name, right? Now we want to read this name. So to read the text from any of the application, we'll use the get text activity. So I'm using get text activity to fetch that value. So I'm using get text activity and indicating that field where the value holds. See here I'm indicating the we need to create the reliable selector so that it will be helpful. It will be easier, we can identify the elements for all the transactions. So we need to mainly avoid the CSS selector. This because for every transaction it will be changed. So we can't use this CSS selectors and all. Here you can see title contains Maharashtra is there. So only for one transaction it will work. For the second iteration, its state name will be changed. So we need to keep it these things in the variable name. So I'm just to highlight that one, right click on it. Then you can see variables are there. Create variable, choose variable. I'm clicking on the choose variable. What are the variables, available variables are there in that workflow, it will come here. So here only one variable is there. I'm clicking on the state name. So title become we creating the variable this one. We pass the variable into the selector so that it will be identify each and every element. Once it is done, then I'm clicking on the save button. The selector got changed, saved now. Now I need to save this state name into one capital city into one variable. So I'm creating one new variable. Control K is the shortcut to create the new variable. Just under I saved that name under capital city name. You can see here variable got created with the string is by default it will be string. If you want to change to any other type, required type, you can change it from there. You can see available options. If you not find, you can click on browse for types and then you can select for the required type. In our process, capital city is a string variable, so variable no need to change anything, it was string only here. Now we need to write this city name into the Excel file back. Here we need to write the state name, right? So I'm using we need to write the status into the Excel file. So I'm using write cell activity here. Again under write cell also we have two activities are there. One is under with Excel, one is workbook. Here I'm using workbook activity here. So again we need to define the Excel file path here. If you can see here in underscore config already is there. Just we need to pass the in underscore config file and whatever the Excel file path. Excel file path holds the name Excel file path. Here just give the in underscore config. Here we give the Excel file. Sheet name also we need to define. Sheet name is here sheet 1. And what content you want, whatever the capital city we read from the above by using get text, we need to pass the, we need to write that value, right? So we need to pass that value there, capital city name. And here the cell range where you want to write. In the first iteration, here you can see this is the A2. In the B2 cell, we want to write the capital city name. So here I'm just giving the B, and here we need to write the cell number. So I'm giving in underscore transaction number. In ReFramework, transaction number initially it will initialize with 1, right? So I'm giving in underscore transaction number +1. So it is starting with 1. So I'm giving 1 +1. So means B2 in first iteration, it will write the value into the B2 cell. In the next iteration, it will become B3, B4. Like that, it will be increment 1 by 1. So I'm giving the B and transaction number dot toString. I'm defining. Here we need to change the transaction number type to integer here. This is not the. Now in the same, if we found the capital city name, we need to mark the status as success here. So I'm giving it is C2, right? Same way we can use this. Just I'm copy pasting the same right cell activity at the down. And here I'm changing the value to C instead of B, because in the C column we need to write the status. Here if we found the capital city name, then I'm writing the status as success. You can see here I added the few state. Hyderabad is not a state, so in that case it should mark if we don't find any capital city for Hyderabad, in that case we need to mark the status as failed. So I'm keeping this get text activity inside the try block. If we don't find the capital city name, then we need to write the status as failed. So I'm keeping inside. If you click on right click on, then you will find surrounded with try catch block. Just I'm dragging everything inside. If we found the capital city, then we are updating the capital city name and status as successful. We are writing. If we don't find the capital city for any of the particular statements, we are throwing, it will throw the exception. Here I'm mentioning the timeout as 5,000 seconds. If you're not defining any timeout, then it will wait for before throwing error, it will wait for 30 seconds. I don't want to wait that much time, so I am defining only 5,000. Means 5,000 milliseconds is nothing but 5 seconds. It will wait for maximum 5 seconds. It will check for whether the element is found or not. If it is not found within the time, it will throw the error. So just I'm adding that exception. Here I'm logging one message. What I want, if any exception is occurred, I'm logging that message there. To log the messages, we have one activity called log message activity. Here we have the different type of log labels are there: fatal, error, warn, info. Here it is refers to error, right? So we are defining the error. And here I'm writing exception occurred. Reading capital city. Here exception, hold that exception, whatever the exception occurred, that message. Here I'm keeping the exception dot message. So that whatever the exception occurred in the try block, it will catch this one, it will update it here. Now I want to update the status also. If we don't find the capital city means, then the second column, capital city column will be blank and we need to update the status as failed. So I'm just copying this right cell activity and pasting here. We're writing the status as failed, then we need to throw the business exception here, because that's whatever the state we defined there, it is invalid state. So we need to skip the transaction. So I'm throwing the business rule exception here. Here I'm just writing the stat message like it's invalid state. And also put the proper display names also here. If we are throwing business exception, keep it so that we can easily no need to check the what is the value holds. By seeing the display name, we can easily identify what kind of exception we are throwing. If it is system exception, you write SC there. Now entire process is completed. Now let me go back to this one main. We created one new variable called transaction number, right? We need to pass the value here. If you're going to change, if you're changing any values or anything, it will show in the orange color, means there are some updates are there. We need to click on this import argument button. Here you can see in underscore transaction number we created. It is asking, it is expecting one variable here. So I'm passing here transaction number. Transaction number is a global variable. I showed the initial one. See here transaction number is initialized with 1. Now everything is done completely. Now let me run the process and show you the. Now everything got defined. Here I put the one message box to show you once the items got added to the queue, I will show you all the things. Here total we have 10 states are there. It will add all those things. I clicked on the run file button. First, it will check any errors are there or anything is there or not. Now, see, you can see Google Chrome browser is opened. Once the process started, it will kill the process, kill the Google Chrome browser window. See, Chrome browser got closed automatically. Now items got added to the queue. Now I will show you. Here, see, initially when we created the state capital queue, we don't have any items are there. Here you can see all our zeros are there. Clicking on the view transaction. See, 10 items got added here. Let me show you the one by one. I will show you two or three what is the data inside contains. I'm clicking on this view details. See, here it is Tamil Nadu. All the state names it came, and initially the queue item status is new state it will be. In the queue, it will follow first in first order. Which item in Excel file, first row contains the Maharashtra. So it was added at the down. In the queue follows first in first out. You can see Maharashtra is there here. It won't take the item from the first one. It will take the item from the down, first in first out. Which item got added first, it will take that item first. So it added all the 10 state names here inside the queue, Hyderabad and everything. Now I'm checking the box, then it will process the next steps. I'm clicking on items added to the queue. I'm clicking OK button. Now it's opening. It is launching the browser. Now it will add one. It will enter one by. It will take the item from the orchestrator queue and it will enter one by one state name. So it is entering the first one is Maharashtra capital. Then hit and enter. It fetches the value as Mumbai is there. So it will read the value. It will write back into the Excel file. So first one is completed. Now it is enter the second state name. It is Telangana. So it will complete all the 10 transactions one by one. It will take one by one item. It will enter the things. It will fetch the capital city and it will write back into the Excel file. In few places I entered the invalid state names, right? See, now it is entered the Hyderabad capital. Here we don't find any capital city. This one it will mark it as failed because as we didn't find any capital city for this one. Delhi also invalid state name. So we didn't find any capital city for that also. So all transaction items are completed for 2 states. We gave the invalid state names, right? Let me show you the output. You can see here status is updated. For Maharashtra, capital city name is Mumbai. For Telangana, it is Hyderabad. For Karnataka, Bangalore. For Gujarat, Gandhinagar. Hyderabad and Delhi are invalid state names. So it's kept as blank and updated the status as failed there. So that is the main advantage. If one of the transaction got failed also, it will skip the transaction. It will go to the next transaction. That is the main advantage of using ReFramework. And let me show you the Orchestrator Logs also. By using these logs, you can easily get to know. See here, processing transaction number. First item is started, and the transaction started the process. Transaction ended and successful. It will show you all the transaction whether the transaction is successfully completed or not. See here, 6th item. This is referred to Hyderabad capital. For Hyderabad, we don't have any capital city capital, so it was thrown the error there. That whatever the selector exception is there, it was mentioned here. And one more city, Delhi also, we don't have any, it is invalid state name. So it was thrown the exception here. For the next items, it is completed. Once all items are completed, you can see close output. Let me show you what is updated in the orchestrator queue also. I'm just refreshing this page. See, all item status is marked as out of 10 items, 2 items is failed. One is Hyderabad and one is Delhi, right? So if I'll go to this view details, it was righted. It is Delhi state name. Reason was mentioned, invalid state name. And even the other one is also failed, Hyderabad, that also here it was mentioned. See, Hyderabad state name, it's invalid state name here. Let me show you one successful case also.
Yeah, Lakshman, after that, maybe you can give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, now you can see status is successful and state name. We don't have any failed, right? So it didn't mention any reason. So this is the advantage of using ReFramework, and we can easily track how many transaction items got successful, how many are failed, and everything. We have different options are there in the orchestrator queue item status, all new, in progress, failed, and all. If you want to see how many are successful, just select the successful. It will show all the successful cases. From the drop down, if you select any failed, means it will show only failed items there. Yeah, Rohit, once yours is done, then I will start with the next things. I will talk about the assignment and all.
Sure, perfect. Thank you. So everyone, just before Lakshman continues into the assignment part, I have a small exercise for you. Shouldn't take more than a minute for any of you. I've just posted on chat a link. Please make sure that you fill in the details which are asked in the form. So this is basically to activate the process of certification for you to as a part of the RPA Developer Kickstarter program. There are 3 details that are asked. First is the full name. So please mention your full name which you want to be reflected on the RPA Developer Kickstarter certificate. Second one is email ID. So whatever email ID you have used to sign up to the community.uipath.com, or whatever email ID you have used to register for these sessions, please make sure that you use the same email IDs, because that will be used to track your attendance for the previous sessions as well. And last one is your LinkedIn profile. So just add the link to your profile, and we would be good. We'll just have a look at the engagement that you have done over social media. So that is pretty much it. Please make sure that you only log for yourself. Do not do any proxies. And just because you fill this form doesn't guarantee you a certificate. We will track back your attendance on all the sessions. In case you have missed one session, that is totally fine. Just make sure that you attend the recording. We kind of expect at least 13 to 14 sessions attended from every participant to be qualified for getting the certificate. So please make sure that you fill in this form in next 10 to 20 minutes. It shouldn't take you more than a minute, so you can do it right now as well as I am speaking. This form will close exactly at 7:30. So whatever you have to fill, just fill it right now. We will also see similar activities happening in the remaining days as well. Please make sure that you do not make any errors while adding this form, because you mess up you make a mistake, a spelling mistake on your name or email ID. It might affect us to track how your attendance was and how your name will be reflected on the certificate. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Back to you, Lakshman.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, coming to today's session, I'm giving one assignment by use ReFramework and implement this session. Implement using this task. And the assignment is regarding the navigate to the URL rpachallenge.com. Here you need to navigate this one, and here you can download one Excel file will be there. Download Excel file. Once you download it, the Excel file will be looks like this. Here you can delete any of the 2 address field columns, any of the rows. And if any all fields are there, then you need to enter the values into the application and then click on the submit button. If any of the field is missing, you need to throw the exception. Here we are keeping address as blank, right? So in that case, it should be update the status as failed. If all the values are there, you need to enter into the application and mark the status as successful. This is the assignment here. Once you completed that one, please share your learnings on social media by tagging this tags Uipath Community, RPA Kickstarter, and Uipath ReFramework. This is the URL of that application, rpachallenge.com. And also we have one more course is available in the Uipath Academy. There also we have some business use cases are there. At the end, you will get the certification also. ReFramework is very helpful. Most of the interviews they will ask. See, this is the Uipath Academy. You can register, and this is the practice with your ReFramework. Here they provide the 2 use cases. At the end of the course, you will get the certificate also. It will be really helpful for your career and all. Once you complete everything, you will get the diploma of completion. That certificate also it will be given. At the last, if you have any questions regarding this session, or not only about this session, if you have any doubts in the Uipath, you can ping me here. Here is my WhatsApp number, Gmail ID, and this is the Uipath forum profile and LinkedIn profile. You can contact me at any time. And also we have called Uipath community forum is there. If you get any stuck while doing any task or anything, you can post your queries here. Uipath community will help you. Yeah, that's all from my end. Thank you for all joining the call. Yeah, Rohit, that's all from me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, we still have some 10-15 minutes to go. So feel free to ask your questions to our speaker. I'll allow you to unmute. Yes. You can also, you don't necessarily need to unmute. You can also post your questions on chat, but now the unmute option will be open for you. And also a special thanks to Shubham and Rohit for answering the questions on the chat. Yeah, we have a question, Lakshman.
Thank you, Shubham and Rohit.
Hi, Lakshman. Good evening. Thank you for today's excellent session. And thanks to the team for clarifying all the queries. And I have one question, like if we throw an exception, so it won't stop the transactions, right?
No, if you're throwing any exception, it will skip that particular transaction. It will go to the next transaction item.
It will continue the next
item.
transaction.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Lakshman. And I think I have one more doubt.
Yeah, tell me.
1 second. So transaction item is an item from the queue, right?
Yes, queue. If you are not using the orchestrator queue, means based on our transaction data, we can change the transaction item type. Let's say our transaction data is data table. Then you can, if you're not using orchestrator queue, you can change the transaction item to data row.
Okay, then what is transaction data?
Transaction data is nothing but collection of transaction items.
Okay. Okay. Collection of transaction items.
Yes.
Okay,
if your transaction data is array of string, then transaction item will be the string. It is.
Okay. Thanks, Lakshman.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Lakshman, there are some questions coming in on chat as well.
Yeah. Could you please explain why asset sheet is read separately and why that is not included in the array of sheets? This content. Yeah, if you for the asset sheet, we'll define orchestrator assets. For that, if you want to read anything, we need to use the get asset activity. So that's why they read that sheet separately. I hope I answered our question, Nagaraj.
Hi, Lakshman. This is Naveen speaking. I thank you for the session. I have a question. So, like, let's say we have 100 transaction items, and let's say 5 fail. So,
Okay.
how do we, in general, like, or how do we go about finding how many, which items have failed? So, do we do it manually, or do we automate that?
Yeah, from the orchestrator queue can easily, I showed you right at the end. Once all items are completed, you
Yeah,
can easily track how many items are successful, how many are failed. By using the Orchestrator queue item status, you can get to know how many are failed.
Oh, okay. So that means we have to go and manually check each and every failed transaction, you mean?
Yes, if you are using any output report you are generating in our process means, in the output
Okay.
report also you will find those status.
Oh, okay, okay, nice. Thank you.
So I'll add a bit of information over here. There is a filter option available in the queue where you can actually filter out the failed transactions. And again, if you want to take a look at all the things by those failed out, there's an option of export that data to the Excel file as well. So you'll have a consolidated report inside a single Excel file.
Yeah, I will show you that
Okay.
export option also. See here you can see export. Here you can see filter option will be their status. New state. If you want only new state, if we have anything, means all transaction items are completed, no new items are found. Let's say I want to fetch all the successful items. So it will came all those things. Just we need to click on export button. Then the file will be downloaded here. If we'll open the file, it will show you all the successful transaction items here. You can see successful. Only I download only successful only. If you are not keeping any filter option means it will download entire report with all the different statuses. Hope we answered our question.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
There is a question from Miguel.
Just sending the sorry. If you need to send an email to the user in order to tell him that the robot has finished, and then you have the results, for example, the file that you downloaded, this activity should be placed and in which phase? At the end, no? Part of the ReFramework.
Yeah, it will be placed under in between get transaction data and end process. We have one transition called no data. There we need to place those things. Let me show you that part. Here you can see if we don't have any items, once all items are completed, it will go to the end process. Here you can see no data is there, right? Just double click on that. Here you need to trigger. Once the process is completed, it will come to this action. Here you can drop an email to the user. All the transactions are completed.
Okay, and if you have multiple transaction items in a queue, but the latest process is some kind of a web scraping, because you need to do not a normal transaction item, no processing. Then you have an if statement, and then you go from one side to another side. You can do that, no?
Yes,
Within the
yes.
process activity.
Yes, yes. Everything, whatever the you are doing, want to perform on each transaction item, everything will come under the process state itself only.
And the ReFramework is okay for dealing with many transactions.
Yes.
But in this case, you have a few ones, and they are web scrapping and things like that. What should you recommend? Which framework do you recommend?
No, I didn't get to the last question. Can you repeat one more?
Yeah, this framework is useful when you have a lot of transactions items, no, in a
Yes,
queue
yes.
or in Excel or whatever, no. But if you don't have so many transactions, a few ones, but you have an extensive GUI, user interface, data scrapping, web scrapping, which is the framework that you recommend?
Yeah, if you only just you want to scrap the data means then I would recommend no need to use the ReFramework and all. Just you can use the normal process, some sequence or flowchart kind of thing. If you want, once you scrap the data, you want to do any process, perform one by one transaction, then you need to use the ReFramework.
So Miguel, basically it depends from process to process. If you can actually divide the whole process in multiple transactions, then yes, ReFramework is a very good thing for you. But if you still want to use ReFramework, we can still use that as a single transaction as well. It's not a means it's not a compulsion that you want, means you cannot use an RE framework for doing a simple process as well. But it's not recommended. You can use modify the RE framework to work as a simple state machine, and you can do the whole process from there as well. There are multiple ways of doing that.
Okay. Great. Thank you very much.
Hi, Rohit here.
Yes, Rohit.
I have one question. Like in some cases, while doing pre-production testing, we're required to do the testing, but the bot should not update any data in the application which we are using in the automation. So for doing this, do we have to add some extra activities to write the result only in Excel and not in the application?
Application in the sense means, okay, let's say you're using some application, you don't want to write any data, just you want to update in the Excel file.
Actually, my question is like, bot will be updating it only while running it in production, and while doing some pre-production testing, we just want the results to be stored in some Excel. So for that purpose, do we have to add extra activities like
Yeah, you need to add those conditions in our process based on the environment. You need to add in the process state. You add one condition whether you're using pre-production environment or production environment. If it is pre-production, you skip those part. If it is production, you update the details. You need to add those conditions in the process transaction state.
Okay, but
So I hope Rohit, this has answered your question. Okay. So Lakshman, there is a question on by Ravisha Gupta. She's asking how to reprocess failed transactions.
How to reprocess the failed transaction. Yeah, as I said in the earlier, if we define the retry mechanism at the time of while creating the queue, it will reprocess those items, failed items again. Let me. Here we have the auto retry mechanism is there. If you define the how many number of times you want to retry those times, if any transaction got failed means due to system exception, it will retry again those items. It will be added the item back to the queue with the new state again. Again, it will be reprocessed again. As of now, I don't have any item with the failed status here. Else I can show you those things.
So they're asking if what happens after retry mechanisms also fails. I hope this
yeah,
is
after
what you're
retry
asking.
mechanism also failed means you need to take that action manually. You need to do that one. Else you need to keep only failed transaction on a separate Excel file, and you need to rerun the process again.
Yep, that's correct. That's correct. I hope Priyanka and Ravisha, this has answered your question. If it hasn't, please unmute yourself. We'll request you to unmute yourself so we can actually understand from your perspective as well.
Yeah. Also, Rohit, is your question answered? I just saw your hand raised. In case it is answered, then you can lower the hand.
Hi, Rohit here. So actually, I have one more question. Like,
yes, please do us.
Can we send reports from Orchestrator, like how many cases successful and failure, all these details?
You want to download the report manually, or bot should only? If you want to bot only will send means we need to we can download by using API calls. We can download the report from last 1 day for last 24 hours, like that. We can download the report, and then we have some mail activities are there to send that report.
Okay. Can we add some like trigger etc. to send some report to some specific email IDs, like for 24 hours or for whole week's transactions?
No, by default we don't have any such options in the Orchestrator. You need to code. You need to do some coding for that one.
Okay. We need to download and then send it, right?
Yeah, you see here we have option called export. You can download it manually, or you can use some Orchestrator API calls. By using API calls, you can download this report and you can send it using some mail activities.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
So, Lakshman, I'll like to add a bit of information over here. Rohit, there is an option of insights available also on Orchestrator that company needs to buy the license for. From via that, you can actually trigger this 24 hours reporting for each and every process. You can means the whole thing has been visible inside the graphical manner for you.
It needs license, right? Or we can use it in community edition.
In community edition, that's available, but I'm not sure it's not visible to Lakshman. Lakshman, can you see if you have the access for insights in your community?
No, actually, I'm using my personal account. MVP account has that option. Maybe for
Okay.
this one, we don't.
So basically, means if you still want to take a look into that, Rohit, you can connect with us offline. I'll guide you how that can be used in the community one.
Sure. Can you please share your LinkedIn profile link?
Yeah, I'll just provide that after this. Yeah. So, Lakshman, there is another question in the chat by Vikas. Why we not use assets sheet 3 in config file for credentials?
Yeah, because in the, if you'll see in the ReFramework init all settings, here we are using activity called get asset activity. So it if you're by using get asset activity, we can't read the credentials. So that's why we are not defining anything in the credentials. We're not defining asset sheet. If you want to read credentials, we need to use get credential activity. So we need to define those things in the setting sheet, and by using get credential, we need that we need to read that name and all.
I think we are now right on time. Guys, if you have any other questions, please do connect with Lakshman, Shubham offline. You can also write on community on forum.uipath.com. We have one more question from Miguel. Lakshman, maybe you can pick that as well.
Is there a ReFramework using Data Studio? What is it?
So Miguel, means for this, basically we can use the bucket that we have available inside the orchestrator. We can also use means the bucket for reading the whole config. I hope this means this is what you are actually asking for, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Means we can actually make sure that the whole config file is stored inside the bucket and the people are directly accessing that.
Yeah. Sarita has also posted one. Naveen, you're not able to post attendance. Naveen, the attendance is open still. Oh no, we just closed it. Hang on.
So Sarita, can you please means elaborate a bit on your question?
Yes, Sarita, if we are using the orchestrator queues, means we need to define the how many number of times you want to retry. Those things will be defined in the at the time of creating the queue. If you are not using orchestrator queues, then we need to define in the constant sheet.
Oh, I have seen one more variables in the ReFramework, the queue variable, the retry variable.
Yeah, by using that number, whatever we defined in the either a constant sheet or orchestrator queue, right? Then it will check the conditions there. And if you can see in the here queue retry number, let's say we defined the retry number as 2, then here initialize it will 0, and it will add, it will retry 1 by 1, and it will increment the number up to 2 times. It will retry. If still it is the bot is unable to process or anything, then it will mark it as those things. This is the condition just we are defining. This retry number is different. Whatever we defining the constant sheet and queue number in queue, it is different.
Okay. Okay, Lakshman, thank you for clarifying.
I think it's perfect now. So for any more queries, please do write to forum.uipath.com. We will be having one last AMA Connect session on this Saturday. So you can also join there and ask the queries to the experts. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I hope all of you have completed or filled in your attendance for the day. I'll be closing it in next 2 minutes, and we will see you tomorrow for day number 13. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good
Thank you all.
evening.
Thank you all. Have a good.
Bye.
Thanks everyone. Bye bye.